Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to our office hours session today, where we will be chatting about everything you need to know about rolling out a new channel. And as always, it's great to see some familiar faces and meet some new ones. My name is Valerie, and I'm on the product marketing team here at Assemble. And my former life, I actually started in customer success. So it's always great to see all the folks that I've worked with in the past. I will pass it along to my teammate Adrian to give an intro on himself.
Yeah, and hi, everybody. I'm Adrian. I am on the solutions team as the in-house workforce manager here at Assembled. Been doing workforce management for 13 or some odd years now. And we are also joined today by Sam to help us do some moderation.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Sam. I'm on our customer success team here at Assembled and excited to be moderating the riveting discussion here. Just a quick housekeeping reminder that there is a lovely Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. If anybody would like to pop in any questions as we go, I'll be moderating that and happy to answer. And for anything we don't get to live, I'll of course be following up over email, so don't be shy. Feel free to ask any questions as we go.
And it looks like before we jump in more, Val, do we have another link we can maybe send? It looks like John's not able to get some other team members in. Maybe his link is already saying that he's here. We'll dig into that while we're going through, John. And of course, the recording is going to be available, but we'll take a look and see if we can get that going.
Absolutely. All right. So just to give an overview of what we will be covering today. So what we'll be first discussing is why it's important to expand your service offerings and what might lead you to do that. Secondly, we will be looking at customer contact volumes with 3 use cases that are quite popular that you might have found yourself experiencing in the past or about to experience. Thirdly, we will be getting started with some staffing plans for you, discussing how new channels affect existing ones, and then going through an exercise with our favorite agent, James Bond. So I'll now hand it over to Adrian to lead us through the rest.
Thanks, Val. So let's jump into a couple examples of why you might want to expand your service offerings, launch that new channel, do something else for your customers here. This is, of course, not all-inclusive. Basically, what we have found as we've done these webinars, we are never able to do all-inclusive. There are just so many different ways that people run their businesses, but we'll give some maybe common ones here. So first of all, customer expectations, they've changed, they've heightened. Omni-channel and multi-channel experiences are definitely becoming the norm. We probably have all seen things around phone has been king, but now chat's catching up, and then email is kind of dwindling around. So customers are expecting different ways to contact, and that's not even to mention social or just other things that we haven't even thought of yet. Or perhaps, we have had some major macro world conditions for the last couple of years. COVID being a huge impactor, and maybe some of these conditions have drove you to consolidate or even just close some of your channels and your offerings. And now you want to open that back up. Conversely, with what's going on with the economy and everything right now, this may be actually something that your company may go through, hopefully not. But if that is something that goes through with some cost cutting exercises, this entire presentation may be something that you revisit when things are a little bit better, hopefully in a couple of quarters, maybe a year or two, and you want to reopen some things. Or maybe you're expanding internationally, you're getting an additional language, you're going after some different operating hours, your different hoops here, just something that you are going to be expanding out because you are going bigger than you have before. Hopefully everybody's doing this. It's an exciting time to be going through that. So jumping in here, the number one question, right, is how do I estimate customer contact volumes? Because without contact volumes, you really don't have a plan. Your contact volumes, your contact volume forecast, it is the spine that you build everything else off of. You do not have support without that here. You are just kind of shooting, in the dark, trying to hit a target. However, in these kind of scenarios, there's not always a lot to go off of. So we're going to run through a couple scenarios, give some tips and tricks on to how you can find information and try to use that to go forward. So the first one is, let's take, you have an existing channel of support and an existing location. So we are expanding your hours here. You've been doing Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 support. and now you want to include weekends or more hours during the day, those shoulder hours, early mornings, the late nights, things like that. Another use case might be a new channel in an existing locale. So you've got email set up. That's what a lot of people do. And now you want to have your phone, your chat, or even social, whatever it may be, to that particular location where you already have people set up, support everything there. Or finally, this goes to expanding hoops, goes to new locations, new languages, things like that. A new location with a new channel. Technically, they're all new channels if we want to get pedantic about it, because it's a whole new location. But really, it's a new location with something new being spun up there. And then that new channel of support. We'll talk about why it's probably ideal to go with a channel of support you already know when you're starting that up, though. So let's jump in here. With your existing channels, your existing location, and your expanding hours, there's some good things, some do's and some don'ts here. One of the first things is pull any relevant data you have on customer contact attempts outside of your hours of operation. For email, this is probably a little bit easier because there should be timestamps with your emails coming in. So if people are actually writing in over the weekend, they're writing in early morning, they're writing in late at night, you can grab some of those timestamps. I will caveat to say that customers do understand when there is you are open, even if you don't fully publish exactly when you're open. You say you have 24/7 support because you can get back to that. Customers are going to figure out when emails don't get responded to and kind of shape their volume. So these and all the plans that we're going to go over here should be thought of kind of a springboard, a starting off point, and then definitely should be iterated on when you get actual data flowing through. But this can be something to give you an idea of where you're going to start to see some of that volume in. But don't plan on the new hours that you're bringing and the additional hits to your support systems to pull evenly the volume from your other hours. What I mean by that is if you are seeing maybe a couple hundred contacts that try to contact over the weekend and maybe another couple hundred that try to get in those shoulder hours during the week, don't expect you're going to see a 100% drop off of the existing hours there. Unfortunately, we're not in a perfect world. It's just not going to be a one-for-one there. And then as you go through and you start to kind of get into these other hours, we'll touch on this a little bit in like your staffing plans, but don't forget to staff enough to account for your shrinkage. This is one that I personally have run across myself, and I've seen a lot of other people run across too. You start to go to your nights, your weekends, maybe you have an idea of some volume. You don't have a lot of idea of volume, but okay, I need to put some people there. You've run the math and you're seeing it's about one person that you need every hour. Well, great. Everybody who runs up the chain who's going to be looking at your financials is like, great, one person? That's not a lot. Let's afford to put that one person there. Except now that one person can't go to the bathroom without the queue being understaffed. They can't call out. We're people here, right? We're not dealing with robots. We're dealing with people. Don't leave anybody alone. Get a couple more people in there. It may be a little bit more costly up front, but it's going to do that. It's going to lead to a better customer experience, which is why we're expanding these offerings anyways, right? And then also explore ways to spread out your existing staffing with new schedule types. Once again, I've done this as well, where you go through and you do all the math and you say, okay, it's going to be an extra 120 hours that we're going to need per week to cover these timeframes. Well, that's a couple people. That's 4 or 5 people. Well, really, is it 4 or 5 people? Or if you're looking at your overall staffing, can you just spread things out? This is a great one when you say, I don't really know what the data is going to be yet. We haven't had any historicals specifically on these hours. We're using some estimations. So instead of just going out and saying, I need X amount of money to hire people, we're going to spread some of these out. We're going to do some mid shifts, maybe some overnight shifts. We're going to get those Tuesday through Saturday and Sunday through Thursday shifts, maybe a weekend wrap. Some people actually like to work those to spread out what we already have, get some data flowing in with the queue being open, and then be able to adapt from there. And finally, one of the things that you really don't want to do is do not forget about scheduling leadership. Once again, we're going after a better customer experience. We want to have leadership there to help out the agents that are going to be in those new times. Leadership can also be that extra lever to pull if you absolutely need to. And let's say we go through and we've pulled all of the contact information that we've seen outside of the hoops. We get an idea of when volume's coming in, but it's super popular. People really like to write in on Sunday for some reason. Well, while you've moved people there for the first week or the first 2 weeks, if it does get real busy, you can have leadership as that last lever to pull to sort of help out and take some of that buffer and not have a queue buildup. That's one of the worst things you want to have happen when you start off here. So that's some tips and tricks here on expanding those hours. Maybe the more common one that we'll find. But let's jump over here to that new channel in the existing location. This is another pretty common one to go through. And actually, according to a Microsoft survey that was done just a couple of years ago, we can see here that phone calls are preferred about 36% of the time, chat 33%. It's growing, it's catching up, and email about 25% of the time. The rest is social and some other smaller ones. So it makes sense that you're going to want to expand out. If you started off as email only or you started off as phone only, there's a big percentage of your customers that are going to want to contact via other channels if you offer it. So go through a couple things here. Be creative. There is not a one size fits all to find out this data. Right now, you are like, I've been taking emails. How are we going to start to take calls? One thing, poll your customers, get estimates. If you have that healthy customer relationship, even using social media, say, hey, how many people, if we offered phone, how many people would be likely to take it up? It's going to give you some data point. Maybe 80% of your respondents say, yes, I would rather do phone than email. My problems, require a more immediate solution. That gives you some number to use. You can use an industry standard here and say, you know what, we're going to shift maybe about a third of our call volume to phones. We're going to at least assume a third of the call volumes can go to phones. Things like that you can help have some sort of data points to get you started here. The nice thing is that if you are already using a existing location and you've got a new channel there, don't try to do everything at once. Use the same hours of operation you're already doing, and then use the existing arrival patterns you have from the channels that you have. Once again, this is a springboard to get you started. But if you have emails and you can see your contact volumes throughout the day, they probably have that nice bell curve where they kind of pick up as businesses open up, people are more awake. Use that arrival pattern. And we'll touch on the arrival patterns a little bit here in a bit as a little refresher. But use that arrival pattern and then just adjust it down to your new line of business. If you think it's going to be maybe a third of that for your phones, adjust it down. And there is a nice springboard to start off with to get going here. Of course, if you are moving to live channels, you want to use Erlang C to build out your requirements. You want to actually get that sort of demand and the queuing built in instead of just doing like a volume times handle times there. Use something like a symbol to do that. You do that in a spreadsheet, you're going to have a bad time. It can be done, but you want to pipe that into a symbol. Then we'll go through a quick overview of how conceptually you can do that in a symbol to pipe it back in and let the system do the hard work for you. And as I've been saying, make your big changes one at a time. Launch one channel at once. Launch it with the same hours of operation. Don't try to do it all at once. Pick that single channel and launch it first, or a subset there. And then finally, and this is what I was saying on the first example here. It'll be in this example. You'll hear it reiterated because I can't say it enough. Don't assume like 100% perfect channel cannibalization here. You launch your phones and you say, okay, we think that phones, based on the Microsoft survey, are going to be maybe a third of our volume, later on if we launch chat and everything as well. So can we just assume that if we launch phones, we're going to see email drop by the same amount? Unfortunately, no. For one, customers have to get used to it. So you may see that in the long term. For two, and I am totally guilty of doing this, I have written in emails and then I've not gotten the answer that I wanted fast enough. So I've called, and I maybe it's bad to say, but I've also done times when it was a very important issue to me. I've been on the phone, I've been on chat, and I've been on email. Probably like the worst nightmare for anybody trying to staff there. But it does happen, and I'm in workforce, and I've still done that. So you can imagine that a lot of other people are going to even hit both channels if they can. So just don't assume that cannibalization. You're going to take a educated guess here. Maybe say, you know what? Instead of a third, we're going to take that third and cut it into a quarter of that third, and that's going to be the reduction in email. Something to just start off with. Of course, we are going to be making changes as quickly as we can, sometimes even the next week or 2 weeks after, when we get real data that comes through. And then the last example here with some nice do's and don'ts is your new channel, your new location. We're not going to be reinventing the wheel here. We're going to follow similar things that we have already just looked at over the last two examples. First one, copy an existing support channel that you have experience and data for. So now let's say we're going to launch Portuguese, and we're going to launch, there's different time zones and there's different languages to take a look at. So don't try to go and launch a Portuguese call center or BPO or whatever it is, and then just assume right away that you can do everything and you're going to be able to launch email, phone, chat, and everything when you haven't done that back home with data you have. You've got email, launch Portuguese email to start off with. This is super helpful because you can then take your email arrival patterns, your email total volumes, and you can make assumptions based off of your customer base and contact percents in your new location. maybe you just have customer base. You don't have contact percentages yet because you just launched there. But if, example here, if Portuguese is 10% of the customer base in the US, take those arrival patterns, drop them all the way down to 10%, and you got yourself a really good arrival pattern to work with. It's not going to be perfect. This one may be a little bit closer because you're just using the actual size of the customer base and in a channel you already have, but it's still going to take some tweaking. And then the second part is you just take that and you shift it to the time zone that you need. Obviously, it is not going to be the same time zone in the US. You can do that in Assembled, where we will take care of all the time zone math. I myself am terrible at doing time zone math in my head. Even sometimes in spreadsheets, it can get real hard. Thank you, Arizona, for not having time zones and throwing an extra wrench even in the US. So let the system do that for you there. That's a good way to start off there. Then once you get your feet under you, you've launched the Portuguese support, you've got some data. Maybe it is a quarter or two later, and you do want to expand up to those other channels. Hopefully you've been doing those maybe in parallel back at home where you started off. Then you can take the learnings you use from your home queues and apply those forward as well. But don't forget, monitor those actual patterns, adjust quickly. You pipe this into Assembled, and within a week or two, we're actually going to have a forecast start to be built out because we are getting the actual volume and doing that for you. And then one last little tip here. Don't forget, in other languages, other parts of the world, you're going to see that there are different handle times, even if it's email or phone. Some languages are much more conversational. Some are much more transactional than just your English base. So make sure that you are accounting for that and not just assuming, oh, I figured out my volume, my handle times are going to be roughly the same. If you've got anybody that is native speaking, maybe have some tests, do some time and motion studies. Hopefully you do have some people that are native speaking so that they can actually help out with the management of that center. So just use the resources you have and get some ideas there on what you should use for the input onto the rest of your workload calculation. So real quick, let's just do a nice refresher here on the arrival pattern. Hopefully some people have been coming to a few of these. So this is going to be something we've covered just a few webinars back. But if not, we'll talk about that arrival pattern since I did cover it a couple times. And it's real simple. You're just taking your volume and turning it into a volume agnostic representation of when your customers are contacting you and getting that as a pattern for your business. This is pretty useful for queues that are experiencing week over week growth, which your new line of business and your new location is hopefully going to be growing week over week as people get used to it. So just as a little visual example here, we're taking our hourly volume or your 30-minute volume or your 15-minute volume, whatever your intervals are that you have. And real simple, the math is not hard here. Don't overthink it, please. Just take it, divide it by your total weekly volume and get that percent of the arrival pattern. So this allows, in that example, for launching Portuguese support, you can either take the entire contact pattern and just drop it down to 10%, or more ideally, you turn it into a arrival pattern with these percentages, and then you just apply that weekly total on top of there. And then what you will do there is just keep adjusting, keep feeding in actual data as you get volume coming through, and these arrival patterns will shift when you find out what it actually is for that particular region that you've launched in. So I'm going to stop here for questions. Did we have any pop up in the chat, or anybody want to chime in?
I think Gerson asked a question. And Sam, thank you for writing in there. This is around opening a new channel. If there's a standard percentage of the increase in volume when opening, let's say we only have email and we open chat, is there an expected increase just by opening or only cannibalization?
Yes, that is a great one. And I think Sam handled this here as well. You are not going to see just pure cannibalization. So maybe you see a 25% drop off in the channel that you originally had, but overall your total volume might be up 5% or so. This goes back to that, customers are gonna look for the convenience factor of being able to write in, to chat in or to phone call in. This is very, very dependent on your industry, your location. It's really hard to say that there's going to be, this much cannibalization and this much incremental growth. So what I want to just reinforce here is just to plan for that. Understand that if you are going to launch that channel, you're not going to see the same one-for-one drop into your other channels. Take your best guess. If you've done this in the past, especially if this was a queue that you maybe had to shutter before, use some of that data. Honestly, we're a workforce community here, right? That's what we're doing with these kind of webinars. Reach out. go on to LinkedIn, go on to, any of those Slack channels, things like that. See if somebody else has gone through that similarly, that maybe in a similar environment to you, and say, hey, you know what, when we launched it, we saw that overall all volume went up 10% when we launched chat, but email dropped by, 8% or something like that. And then you got your overall increase. This is one of those ones where we have that art and the science of workforce, and we're really kind of leaning into the art part to figure out if we can get any other data points to help drive this out just for those first few weeks until we actually get data flowing in. So great question. Any other ones that popped up? No. Okay. Then let's hop in to some simple staffing plans to get started. This is really just covering kind of some overall ideas. We have to look at things a little bit differently for these new lines of business, but we're still going back to basics. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We want to not overthink it, and then of course iterate going through here. So staffing plans, get you started. When you go into a synchronous channel, your phone, your chat, you got to go to Erlang C. You have to go to something that takes into account the demand, the queuing theory, things like that, because it is not the same to do your productivity of your volume times your handle time. This is something that we're actually going to show here. You can configure those variables in Assembled. We can actually work to layer in some manual volumes from some of the things that we've done before, or help you kind of build out that first week or two of volumes. Use the configure variables to get that going. And then you're going to have your requirements built out for your phone, your chat, anything that is more synchronous. With your email, you can usually rely on the volume time, the handle time, volume times handle time to get you started. Of course, there's a little bit more nuance to that, because if you haven't gone full 24/7, you're probably going to see some sort of overnight and weekend queuing. That's actually something that we can grab in the tool and show you that backlog and how it's going to build out and be affected by the schedules that you start with. And then going back, I want to refer back to what we were saying before. Create schedules, and then try to use the people that you already have, but create schedules based off of your new hoops, your new estimates. Run those scenarios. You've had people working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Run those scenarios. See, okay, now we're going to do 4x10s. Maybe we're going to do some part-time. Maybe we're going to do some split shifts. Maybe we're going to offer those weekend ones. That's something that can be done in tool as well. And you can go through some quick scenarios on some different shift types. Of course, with Assemble 2, you can grab and drag and drop those around and quickly just copy and paste if you want to do the different schedule types. Just whatever it is, start to play around with those. It's going to be a little messy. You may have some very blocky schedules to start off with. That's not something to look at and be like, oh man, am I really doing this right? Am I really doing workforce? If I just have, a third of my people start here, a third start here, and a third start there. Yes, you are, because you are starting off with some sort of data-driven values, and you know that you're going to change and get through those as quickly as possible. And then finally, set those minimum staffing for the low and the shoulder intervals. This goes back to what I was saying before. The math might work out. This happens a lot in Erlang on really small ones, where it just says a percentage of a person, and maybe it's rounding up to one person. Set your minimum staffing. You can do this in Assemble. Set your minimum staffing to 2 or possibly even 3, so that people can call out. We are working with people here. They have lives. They need to be able to do something without us having our queues go unstaffed. So just set those as well. And like I said, don't overthink it. We'll go back through. You iterate on this process here. All right, and then finally, this actually goes to the question that was asked before. So just a little bit of reiterating here. How are these existing ones going to be impacted here? Will volume drop in my existing channels for the existing hours that I have out there? With that new channel offering, you're likely going to synchronous or social, because a lot of companies start off with email. Customers are going to use that for immediate answers. I gave that example. I'm totally guilty of it. I need that answer quick. I'm going to hit that channel. This may be something that they would have self-diagnosed before. Hey, I know that this particular company is closed. I'll spend the 5 or 10 minutes trying to Google it, go through some forums, see if I can find out what this is. This happened a lot at T-Mobile as we expanded out. There was the self-diagnosis, or if you offer more service, then that kind of drives that down when you really want to send people to that. That convenience factor should not be underestimated. People are super busy. They don't have a lot of time. They're going to reach out to whatever channel is easier. And mentally, it might be like, hey, it only takes 5 or so minutes to search and find this. But if I'm not having to physically do that, and I can listen to hold music while I'm giving my kid a bath or walking my dog, that's a convenience factor there too. So just understand that you may just pull some volume that would have been deflected into self-service just by offering something that's a little bit more convenient. But that's what we're doing, right? We want to offer the better service to our customers. And then for those expanded hours, same thing. You're going to see the convenience factor. You're probably going to experience a flattening of your volume peaks. So think about it this way. If you've got no staffing over the weekend and you're completely unstaffed on the weekend and even overnights, that Monday morning or any morning probably has a bit of a spike, whether you're just getting through the backlog and hopefully you started to staff for that. That's the first peak you're probably going to start to see flatten because you no longer have, the couple hundred tickets from the weekend that may have already reached SLA that you want to get through right away and then get to the rest of your week. So you're going to be able to flatten that out right away. So that's good. But as the question was asked, prepare for an overall increase. You're expanding your hours. People are going to understand that. They're going to write in more. They're going to go after that convenience factor. They're going to call when an issue comes up, and they aren't going to possibly wait and then combine requests for when it's open. I have something right now. I'm going to call in. I'm going to get it done. Obviously, you're going to try your best to get every issue handled in that one interaction. But maybe like, oh, no, I had 5 minutes. Let's get this done. Something pops up later. They're going to call in again. So just understand there is, it doesn't always just make sense. We would love it to just drop the volume, but be prepared for some of these edge cases. And this is just the tip of the iceberg on the edge cases that can do an overall increase instead of just reductions here. So that covers the theory and going through here. Are there any other questions that have come in? I think there might be a couple.
Yes. Amanda had a question here and asked, has anyone else seen that Erlang C predicted a higher service level at certain staffing levels than it actually is? I'm not sure if it's just me or if that's a tendency.
Yeah. Okay. So Amanda, yes, a little off topic, but I am happy to nerd out on workforce stuff on these sort of questions. So Erlang, and I know there's Erlang C. I want to say there's a few more letters now that are obviously not done by the same guy, but there's different configurations of Erlang. But Erlang is still trying to assume perfect adherence, perfect conformance, things like that. That does not happen in the world. So when Erlang C is going through, it's looking at your queue building up. You can get your shrinkage assumptions into there, but all it takes is that little bit of adherence being off, even by just a couple minutes, especially if you're in a live channel environment with quick interactions, where you start to just have those build up and you have those zeros in your math for ones and zeros versus what it met SLA and what didn't. So that can happen quickly. And then also for Erlang C, if you are doing this at, let's say, an hour interval and not the 30 minutes, and honestly, even down to the 15 minutes sometimes, the entire math can work out and say, oh, we have enough hours, we have enough people. Maybe they're even hitting perfect adherence. But for an example there, if you've got people that are staffed really well, one person for the first 15 minutes and all the rest of your people come in after that first 15 minutes for their hour and they're staffed there, you look at that hour overall, you might have the 10 hours of work you needed versus the 10 hours of work assumed and the forecast came in. But if too many calls come in, even just 2 calls come in at the same time during that first 15 minutes when only one person was staffed, you're going to start to miss SLA, even though you're looking at it at a higher level where everything works out. So once again, just some examples that I have seen where you have to kind of dig in and really get a little bit more accurate. We can do 15-minute intervals, thankfully, in Assemble to get super, super accurate and just kind of dig down and troubleshoot what it could be there. So hopefully that helps answer some of that.
Thanks, Adrian. We have another question that came in from Tasha. Can someone describe what Erlang C is? Our company already uses Assembled for our email support.
Yes. Okay. This is great. Val, can we take a note? We actually have a blog article on this. I believe John wrote the article, and John is way better at explaining this than I am and actually, understanding the math behind it. But it's basically queuing theory of these contexts that come in. It was actually started for phone systems a very, very, very long time ago. And if I'm wrong on this, feel free to correct me. I'm okay with being wrong. I would much rather be corrected with what is actually the truth there. But it's based off the queuing theory of this is when you put in the service level. So how much you want to basically get that first response or pick up the phone or answer within a certain period of time. So maybe it's 3 minutes and then the percentage there and kind of building a little bit of a queue. It's healthy to have a small queue for your calls or even your chats and not just be answering them instantly because that's very expensive to always have somebody immediately available to answer. This is sort of finding that balance of efficient queuing with your customers, but also having efficient staffing to meet that. I hope when you read that article, what I said did not just totally contradict what's in there. But yes, that article will go into it more as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adrian. And sent over the article to you, Tasha, and we can send it to the chat as well. All right, we have another question from Kristen. Generally speaking, how long would you estimate that a new channel will take to reach a reliable level of incoming demand? In our testing of new channels, it seems to take a while before customers catch on and it hits repeatable trends.
Yep. So when I've seen this, sometimes it takes a couple quarters. And if you've been to other webinars, I don't often talk in quarters. It's usually weeks or months. In the capacity planning webinar, we were talking in quarters or years. But there's a reason why I'm saying quarters, is because it is kind of that longer time frame. But this can be impacted a lot by your company. If you do a big social push and you have a big social presence, and you can say, hey, we've launched chat. There can even be deflections of when people are writing in. If you have perhaps an actual like thing you fill out on the website, a form, and it can be like, hey, did you know that chat's available? And you see the little button pop up. Perhaps you have that button that's a little intrusive and pops up, and it has whatever the character is, your mascot, that says, hey, we can chat. Do you want to get in touch about this right now? Or you can call. Do you know that something available? So that's really going to speed it up. But I'd say usually you see about 2 quarters. Hopefully it's not taking an entire year, and it's a bit of a dropping off. So you're going to see, ideally, it kind of starts off and then it builds up and really starts to increase, and then kind of tapers down from there. This is why it's important to keep iterating, to keep going, and to keep understanding, not only, and this is a great question, not only are you going to see the volume increasing overall for that queue, but you're going to continue to see the decreases and the shape, the arrival patterns of your other queues change as well. So you're keeping your eye on that and saying, okay, chat, in 6 months, we think we're going to hit our peak based off of things we've seen before, things we've seen in the industry, but also are other channels going to be impacted or see their full impact around the same time. One way to help mitigate this is if you can cross-train agents to move back and forth. This is great because a lot of agents will sometimes, and they should, see this as an opportunity to increase skills for further career development. But then you can move people back and forth if it's not a full, if it's not very granular, or excuse me, if it's not very even, where an entire week just raises. Maybe the Mondays start to increase, and then later on during the week, the rest of the days start to increase. You can move people back and forth. So I'd say about 6 months, but there's lots and lots of nuance to go in there as well. All right. Were there any others, or did we catch them all?
I think we caught them all for now.
Okay. Well, thanks all. I'm going to hand it over to Val now.
Fantastic. All right. We are excited to be going through an example with our favorite agent and assembled user, James Bond. So in this example, MI6 is rolling out a phone channel, and they currently have email. James Bond's next mission is to create an initial forecast and staffing plan for the phone channel for the next 2 weeks. So let's see if we can help James out. So first, James is going to poll their customers for a preferred method of contact. And this goes back to what Adrian said in terms of polling your customer base and really getting that pulse for your business, and finds out that 80% of customers prefer to use the phone. So after this, Bond will then apply this percentage to existing email volume and use Assemble to do so. How exactly will Bond do this, you may ask? So Bond will do this by using the forecasting suite and Assembled. And what Bond can then do is export email actuals directly through CSV. Then taking that 80% that Bond found out from polling their customers, you can then multiply the actuals by 80% to then generate that new forecast for the phone channel, and then upload this new forecast into Assemble. Again, something to note here is to really keep in mind that this is very much a solution just to get you up and running initially. Assembled can very seamlessly do this once we get around 12 days of actual volume. This will be dynamically done within the platform, but this is very much a solution to get you started in the interim. So you may ask, as a next step, how would James Bond adjust email volume to account for this new channel? So as Adrian went over, this will probably not be a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of cannibalization. And for this example, we will reduce email volume by 20%, and we can actually do this in the forecast configurations feature within Assembled. Again, just an emphasis that we are totally okay with educated guesses and adapting this over time. And this is very much an iterative process. So even if you had that world-class data science team in the benchmarks, you will have to just experience this firsthand and adjust this to the rhythm of your business. All right, so next up, James Bond will then upload this forecast into Assembled. And for the CSV uploads piece, just a reminder that if you are an Assembled user and if you have any questions on how to leverage this feature, please reach out to your CSM or success@assembledhq.com with any questions, and Sam can definitely go over this with you as well. So here you can essentially see the forecast on Assembled staffing timeline once you upload. And this, again, will start you off as the initial process to get up and running while you get actual volume for the next 12 days. Next, from there, you can then input your targets, such as average handle time, SLA percentage, and more, which will allow you to generate your staffing requirements for phone. And we do this using Erlang C. The nifty thing about this is while you may manually input average handle time and these targets in Assembled initially, once we get some actuals, we'll actually be able to dynamically generate average handle time and also forecast handle time in the future. And so as you can see, there's two areas here, one for manually inputting, as well as a second area with dynamic average handle time and suggestions based on what we calculate for you for historical volume. And so this is just really, really handy, as we know that this is not like an even peanut butter spread. This can very much, vary depending on, the time of day and the general rhythm of your business here. All right, and voila, mission accomplished. With these requirements, James Bond now has a clear view of how to staff and schedule their agents for this initial period of getting up and running. And again, Assembled will pick up right where we leave off and do the rest for, after those initial week and a half. Any questions? All right, let's see here. I don't think we have any, unless we might be missing some in the chat. All right, we have a question on how handle time is calculated.
Yep. Okay, that's a great question. It looks like Sam is already probably answering this. Sam, I was going to say, if you wanted to jump in, I saw you typing away. I was totally going to hand the floor over to you. But basically, the handle time that's in there is just basically looking at the actuals as we're going through it. And I'm going to talk about like in Assembled specifically. So we're actually taking a look at when people are, beginning with a contact and then ending with the contact, and that's going to get the handle time. So for emails, we are dropping out the time of, let's say you've written something and then it goes back to the customer and you're waiting for a response and it takes them 2 days. That's not going to give you a handle time of 2+ days. It's just going to be the time that was actively done on the email. For phone and chat, it's a bit simpler because those usually have more defined start and stops. But we're looking at those, and yes, because it is a start and stop, it's going to grab things like your hold. And then if you are going in actually doing any sort of work afterwards before you're ending that contact, so you're getting a full weighted handle time, which is important versus just talk time, and then putting that into the system. And as we were showing on the screen, let me see if I can go back a couple here. What's happening is you can manually configure it in here. There's a suggested value of the weighted average on the next month, or excuse me, of the month's handle time. That doesn't exactly equal what the dynamic handle time is doing here, because if you wanted to do that single handle time of 11 minutes and 17 seconds as like a peanut butter spread going over everything, that's fine. But since we are doing this for every single interval you have configured from 15 minutes to 60 minutes, we'll actually have a table on the back end that's being looked at and saying, okay, actually at this specific time, we're thinking it's only 11 minutes and 4 seconds because people are a little bit more efficient at this time of the day versus later on when it might be a little bit higher. So that's in a nutshell how we're doing it in Assembled. You do the same sort of thing if you're just using your contact systems. Honestly, any sort of contact system, Zendesk, anything like that, should have some sort of handle time reporting just immediately built into the tool. That shouldn't be anything crazy. It's very table stakes. Or if it wasn't, or there's some type of work where you're not capturing that, then you just go and you look at when contacts were started and ended and build out your handle time from there.
Adrian, do you mind if I pop in with another little bit of color there as well?
I would love it. Please go ahead.
Yeah, totally. So one of my biggest findings around average handle time and when it comes to releasing new channels as well is it's also important to keep in mind that as you guys are ramping up this new channel, it's not just customers that are getting used to that channel, it's also agents as well. So you may find in that initial push that the average handle time is a bit higher, but then as the weeks go on, it could get lower as folks get more comfortable on that channel and handling contacts in that way. So it's also important that as you guys are moving forward with the data set, just every once in a while, take a peek back at that average handle time and make sure that your team hasn't leveled up so ferociously that it's no longer accurate. So just be sure to keep a pulse on that as folks become more comfortable with the channel as well.
That's great input. Sam, you're now invited back. You're going to start running some of these slides. That was great. All right. Is there anything else that's popped up in the chat? I know we're getting close to our 45-minute time frame here. If not, we can close it here and then follow up with anything offline. Obviously, we're going to send out some links with who to contact, CSMs, the success teams, even myself for workforce office hours to go through some of the theory of this, and we'll send those out. So I think we are good. Val, correct me if I'm wrong.
Fantastic. Yes. And Sam, would love to pass it to you to do a little overview of Assembled Office Hours that you sent out earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to hop in for the quick plug here. We are now hosting a brand new program of community office hours that folks are welcome to join from throughout our community. And the idea is it's just a space to come in and ask any questions about best practices, talk shop, and just get to know other support people in the community. So would really love to see all of your friendly faces there. And I have dropped the link in the chat earlier, but also just popping it in here once again. So do feel free to swing by if you'd like to talk more with our team and with other teams from around the community about some of these hot topics. So looking forward to seeing you guys there.